Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks to the European FinTech Awards for inviting me. It's really nice to be here. It's especially nice to be here because I worked for the host company today, ABN AMRO, for about 8 years. So it's very nice to be back here. My name is Jeroen. I'm heading the Funding Circle office in the Netherlands, actually across the square here on the other side. So it was very easy to get here. What I want to do in the next about 5-6 minutes is tell you about Funding Circle, about our business model, and tell you, I would say, 9 specific elements about our company. Take you through that. So first of all, back to what we actually do. That all we do is on this slide. So on the left, you see the borrower. On the right, you see the investor. We bring these two together. So the borrower is, in our case, always a SME owner, an SME company looking for credit. On the other side, there's investors. That is a bit more diverse. So it could be you, it could be me, starting with 100 euros onwards. It could be institutional investors, it could be universities investing through us. It could be the European Investment Bank, or it could be a listed vehicle we have now. So it's a very diverse base on the other side. So what do? We bring these two together. We do that in a very fast and efficient way for the borrower as well as for the investor. So for both, it's very easy to invest. To invest on the one hand, to get a loan on the other hand. We're in the middle, and we're organizing all the payments for both parties, and we take an upfront fee from the borrower, and we take a servicing fee from the investor. So that's what our business model is in its basic scenario. So now I take you through the, I think, 9 specifics of Funding Circle. First of all, we operate in 5 countries right now. We started in the UK, in London, 6 years ago. We moved about after 2.5 years, 3 years to the US. And recently, in October 2015, we also moved to continental Europe. Funding Circle bought a company called Zencap, where I worked before, which is now trades as Funding Circle. So operating in 5 countries, San Francisco, Madrid, Berlin, London, and Amsterdam. We started off 6 years ago, as I said, with 3 people. We're now with 550 people, most of them in London. Then second office, definitely San Francisco, and the others in the other offices. So that's what we do. We started, as I said, 3 people in London, and we grew our business rapidly. Here is a picture. We did over 2 billion in originations in loans. Only last year we did 1.1 billion. So it's just to give you an idea of how fast this business is growing. In the Netherlands, we're now operating for the Dutch people here. We're here for a bit over a year. We did the first 250 loans, almost 20 million. Just to give you an idea, that sounds good, but and it is good, I think, for sure. But it's still very small compared to the numbers we do in the other countries right now. So here you see a couple of numbers. We have over 50,000 active investors. What we always say is with every loan on average we create 3 new jobs. So there you see the number in the bottom. It's we created about 60,000 new jobs, which is in the end one of the most important things why we exist, right? Credit for borrowers is opening up economies and actually leads to better employment. And more than actually the sign should be the other way around, what I just see now, but it's bigger than 16,000 businesses took loans through us. And this is just a specific example from the north in the Netherlands of a wedding dresser shop who apply with us, and that's definitely the #1 reason why borrowers come to us, because we're fast and efficient. It's very easy to apply. You go online and you do your application, you add your documents in the end, and you will get a decision from us within 48 hours. I think the speakers before me have they asked, our name was mentioned a lot. I don't know if all of you were in the room, but I really wanted to answer all the questions. But this is where it's all about in the end. We indeed publish every single loan since our existence. So if you go to Funding Circle statistics page, you can download an Excel sheet. You can see all the cohorts. You can see all the loans. You can see which did really well, which might have gone bankrupt, what happened. You can find all the information. And to answer one of the questions in the former session, yes, we will do that in continental Europe as well. But of course, we need to have a bit more, a bit more borrowers we have financed before we do that, because otherwise, all statistics will be skewed. But you can find it all on our website, and that's super important for our business. What we have become, when we came up with the name Funding Circle, we actually never thought about this, but it turns out that this is actually what the circle is within Funding Circle. Because if you have a lot of loans, you do more and more loans, you get better models, you get better underwriting procedures because you have more data which you can use, which will actually lead to higher acceptance rates in the end, because you can better judge what is a good borrower and what's actually not so good borrower, or a borrower we don't want to do, which will actually lead to a lower cost in acquisition and better marketing. So that has become what, for us, the circle in Funding Circle. As I said in the beginning, we have a very diversified base of lenders. So indeed, it's us from €100 onwards that invest in all the loans we have, pick and choose. We have a system in the UK and the US which is called AutoBid. So you basically put your money in and you say, with these kind of parameters, I would like you to diversify my money across, to create a portfolio. And then, yes, we have, since November 2015, we have a listed vehicle at the London Stock Exchange. So if you buy a share there, the money is used to fund the loans in all the countries. So we finally made one of our dreams, we made it happen, that you are actually able to invest your money in one place, and it's used all across the countries we're operating in, currently 5, but hopefully in the future more. So because as a single investor in the Netherlands, for example, you can only invest in loans in the Netherlands right now, mainly for tax reasons. Partnerships, yeah, we have partnerships with, for example, Santander in the UK. We're working on partnerships in the other countries. We have one with the Sparda Bank in Germany. We're working on them here in the Netherlands as well. And I think that's really, really interesting. You see, probably means I need to finish up, which I will quickly do if you allow me. So yeah, there's different kind of partnerships. I can elaborate on that if you like, because I think there's a lot of bankers in the room. If someone asks me a question about that, I can tell you more about it. And the last point I wanted to make is everybody in Funding Circle is an owner in the company, which makes even more so people super aligned with the goals of our company. So thanks for your time, and I'm happy to take any question you might have.
Thanks very much. Questions? Oh, here's a question. You want to start?
Yeah, a question, because you're a platform, obviously you need to have a right balance between investors and borrowers, and you have diversified your funding base. A few years ago, I think it was, you had more investors than borrowers, you in general, the peer-to-peer platform. And we hear that it's getting harder to get investors. Is it something that you see also, or in terms of the balance, how do you see it between borrowers and investors?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because the nature of a platform is that you will always need to balance the two, right? You will always either have a bit more or a lot more investor money, or you will have not enough borrowers or too many borrowers. So you're always in that balancing act, different from what a bank does, of course, because we do not have a single euro on our balance sheet for lending, right? So it's always a balancing act. So then, more concrete to your question, yes, I've seen these periods all the time. So, for example, here, from my own experience, in the beginning, we had a lot of people that want to invest with us. It was like, lots of money was pouring in, and we just didn't have the right borrowers. So then we were disappointing investors. We need to, we were writing them emails saying you were looking for good borrowers. And then a few months later, actually, so many borrowers came in after an article in the Dutch Financial Times, and then we were, begging for investor money again. So yeah, it's always a balancing act. And right now, yeah, I do see investor, like institutional investors. I do see developments there in the US for sure, but I really don't know how that will in the future go. I mean, I think it will go always like this and this. Yeah.
Well, I think it's fascinating that you guys have built up a global platform as opposed to focusing on one country only. What were some of the commonalities and differences when thinking about the Netherlands versus, for example, the UK or the US?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. One of the reasons we're here is, I think, two very important reasons we're in the Netherlands is the internet penetration for Netherlands is much, much higher than in any other country we're operating in. So people are very much, very much used to using the internet, whether it's for business or for private reasons. The other reason is, on average, 51% of the European economy is made up by SMEs, whereas in the Netherlands is 61%. So if I specifically look at the Netherlands, these are two very good reasons to be here. I don't know if that answers your question. For other countries, I could also do it, but that would be for the Netherlands. Yeah.
My question is more related to getting people who want to take a loan and what it takes in terms of marketing expenses to acquire those. Can you say something about that, and also how fast can you return that marketing investment? So
you mean specifically on the borrower side, right? Or
exactly.
Yeah.
Because there you're competing with the traditional banks, and the hypothesis is that the traditional banks are too expensive in that part.
Right. So then actually I would turn the question a little bit, but please interrupt if I, would you like to answer differently. But it's actually asking, why do customers come to us? So the number one reason is because we're fast and we're a fundamentally different experience for the borrower. So where with banks it could take a long time, and it could, even after a long time, you could hear no. Whereas with us, even the customers that get a no are still very, very much positive about our service. Why? Because we're fast and we're clear why we're not doing it, why we're refusing. So after 48 hours, you know that we're not doing it. And of course, a lot of loans we're not doing. So that's a thing. We get a lot of loans through free publicity. So we did a lot of free publicity, which is very important for us. We get a lot of loans through our Google AdWords. It's a very important channel for us. So partner network is very important. So a lot of loans come in through accounting firms, tax advisors, and consultants, stuff like that. But it's so far it has been relatively cheap to acquire them, actually, to be more precise. Yeah.
In your presentation, you talked a bit about the partnerships that you have with financial institutions. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so I would say, generally speaking, partnerships could be I would classify them as banks taking an equity stake in a company, like ING did with Cabbage. So it's really, really being on board as a shareholder and aligning stuff, using the technology behind it. That's what a lot of people do, a lot of banks do. Then there's banks that actually start their own platform. So there's banks talking about starting it themselves. And then what we, for example, do with Santander is referral agreements. So banks don't want to do certain loans, they refer them to us. And vice versa could be possible as well. So what I see is equity cooperation, and then aligning, using the technology. Referral agreements is another one. I think these are possibilities of banks working together with parties like us.
Thanks. I think we have time for maybe one question from the audience. Does anybody have something pressing? Can I ask you?
How do you handle the situations where a loan needs restructuring or workout?
Yeah, so I don't know if everybody got the question, but the question is, what do we do once a loan gets into a delinquent phase? So we just have our own policy. So up to, we start to send letters to get the money back, and after 90 days, we will send it to a collections agency. Because for your information, in the continental European countries we're operating in, we only operate with a personal guarantee. So we do not have business collateral. Whereas in the US and in the UK, where we go up to loans of £1 million in the UK and up to $500,000 in the US, we do have business collateral. We don't have it here because we go up to 250K. So it's a very simple process, actually. And, restructuring, quote unquote, is as simple as, we might, grant a little bit more time to pay, but then it's done. Then it's going to go to a collections agency. We're not selling the loan, but, they're operating for us.
Jeroen, thanks very much. I'm sure there's some more questions from the audience. If you could stick around maybe after that some people can approach you.
Thanks
very much. Well
Excellent.
done.
Thanks.